Numbers chapter 33. These are the accounts of the journeys undertaken by the children of Israel after they had left the land of Egypt, organized by their military units, under the leadership of Moses and Aaron. Moses recorded their departures according to their journeys as directed by the Lord, and these are their journeys with corresponding departures. They set out from Rameses in the first month, on the 15th day of that month. On the day after the Passover, the Israelites went out defiantly in the sight of all the Egyptians. While the Egyptians were burying all their firstborn, whom the Lord had struck down among them. The Lord had also executed judgments on their gods. The children of Israel journeyed from Rameses and camped in Succoth. They moved from Succoth and camped in Etham, which is on the edge of the wilderness. They journeyed from Etham and turned back to Pi Hahiroth, which faces Baal Zephon, and they camped before Migdol. They left Pi Hahiroth and crossed through the midst of the sea into the wilderness. They journeyed for 3 days in the wilderness of Etham and camped at Marah. They set out from Marah and came to Elim. At Elim there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, so they camped there. They moved from Elim and camped by the Red Sea. They journeyed from the Red Sea and camped in the Wilderness of Zin. They journeyed from the Wilderness of Zin and camped at Dophkah. They departed from Dophkah and camped at Alush. They moved from Alush and camped at Rephidim, where there was no water for the people to drink. They left Rephidim and camped in the Wilderness of Sinai. They journeyed from the Wilderness of Sinai and camped at Kibroth Hattaavah. They left Kibroth Hattaavah and camped at Hahiroth. They moved from Hahiroth and camped at Rimmon. They journeyed from Rimmon and camped at Rimmon Perez. They left Rimmon Perez and camped at Libnah. They moved from Libnah and camped at Rissah. They journeyed from Rissah and camped at Kehelatha. They moved from Kehelatha and camped at Mount Shepher. They left Mount Shepher and camped at Harada. They journeyed from Harada and camped at Makaloth. They moved from Makaloth and camped at Tahath. They left Tahath and camped at Turah. They moved from Turah and camped at Mithkah. They left Mithkah and camped at Hashmanah. They moved from Hashmanah and camped at Mosroth. They left Mosroth and camped at Bene Jaakan. They moved from Bene Jaakan and camped at Hor Haggidgad. They left Hor Haggidgad and camped at Jotbathah. They moved from Jotbathah and camped at Abrona. They left Abrona and camped at Ezion Geber. They moved from Ezion Geber and camped in the Wilderness of Zin, which is Kadesh. They left Kadesh and camped at Mount Hor, on the boundary of the land of Edom. Aaron the priest ascended Mount Hor at the command of the Lord and died there in the 40th year after the children of Israel had come out of the land of Egypt, on the 1st day of the 5th month. Aaron was 123 years old when he died on Mount Hor. Now when the Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in the Negev of the land of Canaan, heard that the Israelites were coming, they moved from Mount Hor and camped at Zalmonah. They left Zalmonah and camped at Punon. They moved from Punon and camped at Oboth. They left Oboth and camped at Ije Abarim on the border of Moab. They moved from Aim and camped at Dibon Gad. They left Dibon Gad and camped at Almon Diblathaim. They moved from Almon Diblathaim and camped in the mountains of Abarim facing Nebo. They left the mountains of Abarim and camped on the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. They camped by the Jordan from Beth Jeshimoth to Abel Shittim in the plains of Moab. The Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho and said, "Tell the Israelites, when you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, you must drive out all the inhabitants of the land before you, destroy all their carved images and cast idols, and demolish all their high places. You are to take possession of the land and settle in it, for I have given you the land to possess. You are to divide the land by lot according to your clans. To a larger group give a larger inheritance, and to a smaller group a smaller inheritance. Whatever place the lot indicates will be yours. You will receive an inheritance according to your ancestral tribes. But if you don't drive out the inhabitants of the land before you, those you allowed to remain will become thorns in your sides, and their gods will be a snare to you." The Lord also said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and tell them, when you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, you must select cities to serve as cities of refuge for you, so that a person who kills someone unintentionally may flee there. The cities will be a refuge for you from the avenger, so that the one who kills someone will not die until he stands trial before the assembly. The cities you select will be your 6 cities of refuge. Select 3 cities across the Jordan and 3 cities in the land of Canaan to be cities of refuge. These 6 cities will serve as a refuge for the Israelites and for the foreigner or temporary resident among them, so that anyone who kills a person unintentionally may flee there. If anyone strikes a person with an iron object and death results, he is a murderer. The murderer must be put to death. Or if anyone has a stone in his hand that could kill and strikes another person and death results, he is a murderer. The murderer must be put to death. Or if anyone has a wood instrument in his hand that could kill and he hits someone fatally, he is a murderer. The murderer must be put to death. The avenger of blood himself is to kill the murderer. When he finds him, he is to kill him. If anyone in hatred pushes a person or throws something at him with malicious intent and he dies, or if in hostility he strikes him with his hand and he dies, the one who struck him must be put to death. He is a murderer. The avenger of blood is to kill the murderer when he finds him. But if anyone suddenly pushes a person without hostility or throws any object at him without malicious intent, or without seeing him drops a stone that could kill him, and he dies, but he was not his enemy and didn't intend to harm him, the assembly is to judge between the person who kills and the avenger of blood according to these ordinances. The assembly is to protect the one who kills from the avenger of blood. Then the assembly will return him to the city of refuge he fled to, and he must live there until the death of the high priest who was anointed with the holy oil. But if the one who kills ever goes outside the border of the city of refuge he fled to, and the avenger of blood finds him outside the border of his city of refuge and kills him, the avenger will not be guilty of bloodshed, because the one who kills must live in his city of refuge until the death of the high priest. After the death of the high priest, the one who has killed may return to the land he possesses. These instructions will be a statutory ordinance for you throughout your generations wherever you live. If anyone kills a person, the murderer is to be put to death based on the word of witnesses. But no one is to be put to death based on the testimony of one witness. You are not to accept a ransom for the life of a murderer who is guilty of killing someone. He must be put to death. You are not to accept payment for someone who has fled to a city of refuge, allowing him to return and live in the land before the death of the priest. You must not defile the land where you are, for blood defiled the land, and there can be no atonement for the land because of the blood that is shed on it, except by the blood of the person who shed it. You are not to defile the land where you live, where I dwell, for I, the Lord, dwell among the Israelites.